Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. One day we might not be able to use those terms because the gender lobby are hard at it trying to raise those terms. Be warned. I'd like to say a huge thank you for all the views across a number of platforms of my live stream so far. Thank you for watching. Thank you for viewing. And thank you for liking and subscribing to the channels. I'm really grateful. Thank you. Tonight's topic, I'd like to discuss the lesbians who were removed from their own pride movement in Cardiff by Cardiff police and cheered on and supported by Pride Cymru, Cardiff Pride. So firstly, I'd like to give a message to Pride Cymru, Cardiff Pride and Cardiff Police. I highly condemn the decision by Cardiff Police to remove lesbians from their own pride movement. It's unbelievable, and I find it actually homophobic what you've done. But I furthermore condemn Pride Cymru, that's Cardiff Pride, for actively cheering on the removal of these lesbians from your event. I find that appalling. And I find that Pride Cymru are a big embarrassment to the gay community. And I'm certain this will have a negative impact on Pride Cymru in the future. Pride Cymru are a big embarrassment to the gay. Yeah, they just are. You know, they're a big embarrassment to the gay community doing what they've done. There really isn't any reasons for those women to have been removed from their own pride movement, because as we know, the tide is, the tide is turning against gender ideology. More and more lesbians, gay men and bisexuals are walking away from a gender theory and its harms to the gay community, women, and now children. That's exactly the reason why LGB dropped the T, for example, the hashtag trended on Twitter along with LGB without the T, which regularly trends on Twitter because LGB people are sick to the teeth of the trans lobby spouting out nonsense on their gay rights platform. Ejecting lesbians from their own pride movement is embarrassing. It will never be forgotten, and it will remain in our history what has happened forever. It's not something the gay community should be proud of, and it's something the gay community should learn from. Pride Cymru and Cardiff Police were both out of order to these lesbians, and we'll find that we will remember this in the future. We'll see exactly how bad it really is in the future. I think people now are sort of brushing it off, but I don't think that will happen in the future. So what happened in Cardiff Pride, which is Pride Cymru if you're in Wales? Well, it's simple. Cardiff Police removed some lesbians from Cardiff Pride, which is Pride Cardiff, known as Pride Cymru if you live. Do you know, I was actually trying to find the pronunciation of that, so I don't know whether it's Cymru or I think it is Cymru actually, isn't it, or Cymru? I don't know, so apologies for not getting the pronunciation right, but I'm not Welsh. I was going to actually find out how to pronounce that, but I didn't, so I'm sorry if I've got it wrong. But this removing, Cardiff Police removing lesbians from their own pride movement was appalling to start with, but to have it cheered on by Pride Cymru is just appalling. It's unnecessary and it's wrong. But the chair of Pride, Pride Cymru or Cymru, whichever you pronounce it, Gian Molyneux, issued the following statement on behalf of Pride or for Pride, should I say? And I'm going to read that out because I think it's vastly important what they said, because I'm going to have a little pick at it as well. So what Gian Molyneux said on behalf of Pride Cymru, excuse me, coughing. He said that today's Pride Cymru parade was all about celebration of the LGBTQ plus rights, despite a small group of people interrupting the march, they were drowned out by shouts of solidarity from the community and spectators. There is no place for hate at Pride, and as our parade said today loudly and clearly, trans rights are human rights, you know, and the hashtag unique and united was put underneath the statement. I'm just going to have another cough. Excuse me, I'm still recovering from COVID, so I do apologize about my coughing. Hopefully, in fact, I'll have a little drink and it might clear my throat a little bit. If you don't know Pride, if you don't know about Pride Cymru, I think it's Cymru, isn't it? If you don't know about Pride Cymru, which is Cardiff Pride, if you're English, it's the biggest Pride event in Wales, but I have big issues with their statement. If Pride Cymru parade was all about celebrations and LGBTQ plus rights, then why were lesbians thrown out of their own Pride movement for celebrating who they were? They simply spoke up for their same-sex attracted rights, as lesbians, who clearly don't date people with penises. What is the issue with this, Gian at Pride Cymru? Cymru. Oh, I wish I knew how to pronounce that word. I've gone and bollocks this up, haven't I? So the reality is, Gian at Pride Cymru, you've put the rights of others, that's some men who impersonate lesbians, harass lesbians, and actively trying to redefine lesbians and pester lesbians for sex and accuse them of transphobia if they refuse. You have put the rights of people like that above lesbians. Now, I'm not saying that every trans woman does this, but people who impersonate lesbians, I mean, to me, that is things that I fought against personally from many, many years ago to stop. So, and I don't agree with this, what is happening here. So, you've put the rights of those who are not actually lesbians to the rights of actual lesbians. That is what you've done, and I find that appalling. And this group of people that interrupted your march, as you put it, are actually lesbians who didn't interrupt your march, had permission to be there, I read, and were told that they could be there. And as lesbians have a full right to be part of their own movement. Lesbians have a full right to attend Pride, even if Pride Cymru want to exclude them. I find it insulting that Pride Cymru couldn't refer to this group of people as lesbians. And I mean, talk about lesbian erasure, this time from Pride Cymru, who were there supposedly supporting their rights. But, you decide to erase their name and call them a group of people instead. Well, they're actually a group of lesbians. I think that's what, you should have really said in your statement. Well, it is what you should have said in your statement. They're not just a group of people, they're a group of lesbians. And if there's no place for hate, Gian Molyneux at Pride Cymru, why are you excluding lesbians from your Pride March? I mean, why are you excluding these people? If this is hate to exclude lesbians from their own movement. I'm sorry that you can't see that, but perhaps you will see that in the future. Perhaps more and more people will see that in the future. But this is what you've done. And why did Cymru Pride cheer on these lesbians that were removed by Cardiff police who were simply expressing their rights as lesbians? I mean, these are questions that I'd like to know. It's one thing to remove them, but then they raise the word lesbians from your statement and make out this was just a group of people. These were lesbians, okay, who had a full right to be in their Pride movement. And your parade did indeed say loudly and clearly, trans rights are human rights. Let's not forget that lesbians' rights are also human rights, and they were hard-fought rights to win. Perhaps Pride Cymru, who has clearly taken a side in this matter, should consider lesbians' rights too, and their rights to refuse people with penises in all circumstances, because lesbians don't date people with penises, okay? And that's their right. That's what I fought against for 30 years. The religious right tried to convince us that actually lesbians, it was just a condition, that for gay men, it was just a condition, and actually they can have sex with who they want. Actually, that's not the case. But this is exactly what you're trying to, you're falling down this pit of what the religious right did to us many, many years ago. Pride Cymru owe these lesbians more than an apology, and so do Cardiff Police for removing them from their own pride movement. And Cardiff Police should also publicly apologise for the factually incorrect statement they put out on the removal of these lesbians. The proof's in the pudding. The proof was in that recording, and what Cardiff Police said was two different things. And you know, you need to publicly apologise to the gay community for what you've done, because this is unacceptable. Is it the fact that Cardiff Police are still as institutionalised homophobic as they were in the 60s, 70s, 80s? Is it the fact, is it just the same abuse and harassment that lesbians and gay people suffered at the hands of the police, but just a different decade? I thought we'd moved on. Now I'm not so sure. You know, I'm really not. I'm calling on all gay, lesbian and bisexual people to stand up against this. You know, this is appalling what's happened to these lesbians. And, you know, we've all got different thoughts. We've all got different rights. We've all got different this, that and the other. But the point of the matter is these are lesbians that belong in that movement. And if you're going to kick lesbians and gay men, which is what we're seeing in Prides now, then, you know, problems are going to arise. Hello, Amy. Very nice to have you on. Thank you for joining me. I'm still recovering a little bit from COVID. I feel a lot better. I feel a lot more alive. I've just got a little bit of a cough and it's just started now. So I'm just going to have a little drink again. Hopefully I'll be able to get through the live stream without coughing too much. Yeah, but hello and thanks for joining me. Really do appreciate you being here. Right. So again, I'm asking the lesbian, gay, and bisexual people to please speak out, you know, about these lesbians that, oh, excuse me, that were removed, you know, for celebrating who they are and expressing their lesbian rights. They have every right to do this. Pride Cymru, and I hope I've got that pronounced right, have no right to exclude these lesbians who did nothing wrong. Oh, dear me. I hope I'm going to be able to carry on tonight. I'm sure I will. Angela Wild was one of the women kicked out of Pride, and who is from the activist group GETTR. She insisted that, you know, we have a right to be there. This is exactly what she said in a paper that I saw. She said we have the right to be there, and we have a right to express ourselves. And Angela Wild is absolutely correct that these lesbians did have a full right to be there, and they did have a full right to express themselves, and that's exactly what they did. If Pride Cymru isn't for lesbians like them, then who the hell is it for? You know, I mean, it's unbelievable what is happening to the lesbian and gay community again, you know, but this is terrible and it needs to be sorted out. They actually held banners that said trans activism erases lesbians, because actually trans activism, as we see in, does erase lesbians, and we're seeing the evidence of this, and we're seeing the vast amount of lesbians around the world who are actually bringing this to the attention. And it also said that lesbians don't like penises. Well, that's absolutely correct. They don't, you know, and there's nothing wrong with these truthful statements that they're brought out. I mean, it's also ironic that Pride Cymru also tweeted out 2 days before the event the following, and I'll read the tweet that Pride Cymru did tweet out 2 days before. He said, "Are you bringing any signs this weekend? We'd love to see the process. We get crafty. We'd love to see the process. We get crafty. Remember, the first Pride was a protest. Countdown to Pride, unique and united." But hang on a minute, Pride Cymru. You publicly asked if anybody was bringing any signs. So what's the problem with these lesbians bringing their signs, asserting their rights? Because remember, the first Pride was a protest. It's exactly what you said in there. Other people had signs. There's nothing wrong with their signs. You shouldn't have evicted them. And talking about the first Pride in America, trans activists are regularly trying to erase, you know, gay history, and that's possibly what we're seeing in Pride Simru, perhaps, you know, that they're pretending that lesbians, you know, well, they've definitely erased these lesbians, but, you know, it's what you know, trans activists are out there and they're really trying to destroy the rights of everybody, including gay men, lesbians, women, child safeguarding, everybody's rights. But trans activists want you to believe that it's them that started Pride. It really wasn't. History proves that it was gay and lesbian and bisexual people that actually, you know, started Pride. It was not. It was not trans people that started Pride. Trans activists want you to believe that Pride was all about their rights. It wasn't. Pride was all about lesbian and gay rights. It was all about same-sex attraction rights. Trans activists want you to believe that Marsha P. Johnson was trans. He really wasn't. Trans activists want you to believe that Marsha P. Johnson was the first person who stood up to the police at the famous protest. He really wasn't. Here's what he actually said in a undercover recording, and I'm going to read that out because trans activists are blurring gay history. They're not just blurring gay history; they are erasing gay history, and it's just so silly. So Marsha P. Johnson said, "The way I I'll start that again. Oh dear. The way I winded up being at Stonewall that night, I was having a party uptown and we were all out there, and Miss Sylvia Rivera and them were having over in the park having a cocktail. So Miss Sylvia Rivera and them were over in the park having a cocktail. I was uptown and I didn't get downtown until about 2 o'clock because when I got downtown, the place was already on fire and it was a raid already. The riots had already started. This fact doesn't even matter. It really doesn't even matter about Marsha Johnson. It's really not that important, except that is what Marsha Johnson himself said. Pride was started and organised by lesbians, gay men and bisexuals for lesbian and gay rights, for same-sex rights, and the gay lobby fought to legalise same-sex relationships, to allow same-sex marriage and a whole host of other same-sex rights. Pride and the Pride movement was never about trans rights, and that is why there is no history for trans rights. That's why, okay, the trans lobby want to erase gay history and pretend that it was all about the trans. It really wasn't. So many people like me have been arguing for years that trans activism has gone too far and in a wrong, dangerous direction. I've been arguing for a long time. I really know full well it's gone too far. And, you know, lesbians are simply calling it out for what it is, this trans activism. It's utter nonsense, which is destroying the hard-earned rights of, you know, lesbians. And lesbians are very much suffering through trans activism. Lesbians are being erased. And if you open your eyes and look at the evidence, you will see that. Lesbians are being incorrectly prescribed experimental puberty blockers and irreversible hormones and going through unnecessary surgery to have their breasts amputated, later realizing it was all a mistake, and why doctors were allowed, why was it that doctors were allowed to do these horrors to them? The evidence is out there that more and more girls particularly are detransitioning and realizing that they were sold a lie and they were lesbian all along. There's also a lot of guys actually detransitioning as well, you know, but I'm certainly seeing a big upturn in girls detransitioning and the very sad stories. And this is because trans activists and big pharma pushed a lie that people can actually change their sexes. Little girls and boys are being indoctrinated at school with gender theory from the age of 3 years old. This confuses them. It confuses them about the gender. It's bound to confuse them about the gender. If you're talking to a 3-year-old in nappies about their gender, this is going to confuse them. And why? Because big pharma makes quite a profit. Big pharma makes a big profit. I'm informed about that. You know, they do, and that's why. You know, this is why it's happening. You know, they've gone into schools. The trans lobby are pushing it, and who's profiting out of it? There's a lot of money being made out of this. The trans lobby is really destroying the lives of lesbians. It's destroying the lives of our little girls. And it's time all the LGB community woke up. It's time trans people woke up as well, because it's not doing anything for your movement by all these girls that are detransitioning and explaining the horrific things that have happened to them. And it's not just lesbians that are being affected, of course. We've got women's sports being affected. It's affecting women's rights, women's spaces, women's language. It's affecting child safeguarding. 3-year-olds shouldn't be discussing, the teachers shouldn't be discussing gender to a 3-year-old. It's the nursery staff shouldn't be discussing this gender to a 3-year-old. It's really silly, but it's all up for grabs from the trans lobby. Everything, children's rights, women's rights, the whole lot. Gay rights has gone up. Gay men's rights as well. It's all up for grabs from the trans lobby, and they're trying to grab everything. So I say it again: it's up to the it's up to the LGB community and T community to wake up and speak up, because if you don't, the trans lobby are going to grab everything. Because it was the LGB community, let's not forget this. It was the LGBT, it was the LGB community that gave the trans lobby the keys to our gay rights platform, and it's up to the LGB community to get the T lobby off our platform. They're making all this sort of gender nonsense that they're spouting out from the gay rights platform is making a mockery of what we stand for. And if you don't act now, you could lose your rights afforded to you. I mean, after all, I regularly hear that the LGB rights are going backwards in the Western world. You have the trans lobby to blame for this. Get the T off your platform, or lose even more rights. So if you're out there and you're a gay man, or you're a lesbian, or bisexual, what you need to do, and you're supporting this rubbish, okay, you need to get the T off your platform. But these heroic lesbians were giving out leaflets which described the cotton ceiling. If you haven't come across the term cotton ceiling before, I will read their leaflet out, and I'll read their leaflet out and chat. Excuse me. So if you haven't heard about the cotton ceiling before, I'll read the leaflet out that they were giving out, and then chat about Morgan Page's controversial workshops on overcoming the cotton ceiling, which you may find, as I do, is quite grotesque. So these heroic lesbians were giving out the leaflet, which was Get the L Out, Cardiff 22. What is a cotton ceiling? The cotton ceiling is sexual coercion and sexual violence committed against lesbians to accept males as sexual partners when they identify as lesbians. In 2022, lesbians who state they are exclusively attracted to females are routinely hounded out of LGBT groups, banned from lesbian dating apps, and threatened with sexual violence on social media. Stonewall believes males who call themselves lesbians are persecuted if lesbians refuse to sleep with them. This is called the cotton ceiling. Stonewall has accused lesbians of being sexual racists. I've seen the evidence to that, for rejecting males as sexual partners. Again, I have seen the evidence to that. If you look out, the evidence is there. They did say that. Stonewall receives public funding to protect the rights of same-sex attracted people. And they do. They're receiving taxpayers' money to protect the rights of same-sex attracted people. I'm not seeing much of that going on in Stonewall, recently. And, it's time now that public funding, I think, was pulled. All public funding to Stonewall was pulled. The leaflet goes on to say that lesbians who suffer sexual coercion and violence from males who identify as lesbians are disbelieved, called TERFs, and told they deserve the violence they received. I'm seeing evidence of all this on a regular basis. The Welsh Government proposed LGBT action plan, so that the Welsh Government have proposed an LGBT action plan which refuses to acknowledge the conflict and rights between lesbians and males who call themselves lesbians. Sexual orientation is indeed a protected characteristic under the Equality Act 2010, but if a male can be a lesbian, the terms lesbian or same-sex attraction become meaningless, and lesbians' legal protections are trumped by males who appropriate lesbians' existence, sexuality and oppression. Yeah, I mean that's that leaflet is quite telling you how it is. You know, it's that's how it is, and we'll see more of that later on. There's more lesbians and gay men and everyone in the community really that are standing up and thinking, you know, we need to do something about this, and we do need to do something about this. And thankfully more and more people are walking away from Stonewall. A lot of people have condemned Pride Simru, quite rightfully. So let's talk about the cotton ceiling. Well, quite a few years ago, Morgan M. Page ran a workshop entitled Overcoming the Cotton Ceiling, Breaking Down Sexual Barriers for Queer Trans Women with Morgan M. Page. I'll read the description of this. This was advertised, and I believe that people actually attended. It's Overcoming the Cotton Ceiling will explore the sexual barriers queer trans women face when the broader queer women's community, through group discussions and the hands-on creation of visual representations of these barriers. Participants will work together to identify barriers, strategize ways to overcome them, and build community open to all trans women and MAAB genderqueer folks. Well, I don't know what MAAB genderqueer folks. That to me, that workshop is disgusting. It's totally inappropriate. This is basically saying this is basically a workshop for men, biologically born males who now identify as lesbians, to take those barriers down. So let's put that into context. It's a workshop run quite a few years ago aimed at biologically born males who have transitioned into women and now identified as lesbians, as I've just said. Again, I don't know. I don't have any idea what MAB genderqueer folk are, and I don't particularly want to know. But they don't sound very actual lesbian to me. So this workshop is about overcoming the sexual boundaries of lesbians who, as we all know, are same-sex attracted people for the benefit, so that biologically born males can sexually assault them. You know, that's what that workshop's all about. It's an appalling workshop, and it's a controversial workshop. It's talked about a lot, and that's what the cotton ceiling is. You know, how to overcome the boundaries. You know, to sexually assault lesbians. That's exactly what that is. So, can you see the problem? Trying to overcome the sexual boundaries of lesbians so that biologically born males can have sex with them, taught, if you like, in a workshop, it is quite gruesome. It's wrong, and it's actually perverted. I really feel sick to think that a workshop like that was ever allowed in the first place. I really feel ill to think that somebody created a workshop like that. It's totally unacceptable. Perhaps reading this has made many more realize why more and more lesbians are becoming increasingly upset about the direction of trans activism and the direction of Stonewall. It's certainly made me realize. So if it has, let me know in the comments. If this has changed you, if you now understand what this is all about, please do let me know in the comments. Let's chat about it. You know, let's support lesbians against this horrific, disgusting thing. So yeah, I mean, that's what's happened. I mean, I'm absolutely appalled that after all these years of fighting, that lesbians and gay men are now being excluded from pride events. It's just wrong. And I do hope that more and more lesbians, gays and bisexuals can stand up and realize that you are being excluded, that your rights are being taken away, that you are being erased, that your history is being erased, you know, and that these things are happening and they shouldn't be happening. This is what we fought for many, many years ago. It's totally wrong. So let me know, you know, let me know what you think. you know, we can actually do. Let me know the solutions. But above all, don't stay quiet about this. Please do speak out, or please support the people who are speaking out and complain. You know, I mean, Cardiff have sort of they've gone. They've basically, you know, they've gone in a direction where they're going to support trans ideology. I don't know why Cardiff would do this. It will have to change in the future. Too many people are going to speak out. It's such a shame that this is now, you know, be taking over our society as it was, and it really is, and it's not good. You know, a recent court case, as an emergency case, actually has been put forward to try to get gender theory, which is now being taught to 3-year-olds in Welsh schools. You know, this is so wrong, and all this will do is create more children confused about their gender, which will mean that more children are going to the gender clinics, more children will be prescribed puberty blockers, more children will be put on cross-sex hormones. Then they'll go through the whole operation, okay, the unnecessary operations, to find out that when they get older, oh, you know, why did people do the horrors they did to me? Adults should know better. Children are children, they should be left alone. We shouldn't be discussing gender ideology to them at 3 years old, 4 years old. We shouldn't be discussing this to anybody, you know, children wise. You know, we should be discussing it to anybody actually, but children wise, we shouldn't be doing this. This is such a crime that's happening to our children, and it's such a shame. Well, I mean, that's all I've got to say on the subject of the lesbians who were kicked out on there. I think there's been a lot in the press. I'm so glad it's been condemned throughout social media. I'm so glad press have condemned what have happened, and I think it will be a black mark really on Pride Cymru, Cardiff Pride, and I think like I've said, it will be part of the gay history that lesbians were kicked out of Pride Cardiff, and I think that, you know, as time goes on, I think people will really understand the realities of what's actually happened. I mean, at the moment, they're just being called a group of people who disrupted the event, but actually that's not the case at all. And I'd like to see what's going to happen next year, to be honest, because I've been contacted by a few people who, you know, who may decide that they want to take our prides back from trans activists who have clearly ruined our prides. I'm hearing about the Manchester Pride as well, with with Alex, who's been another Alex, who's been you know, kicked out of Pride. He wasn't allowed to attend the candlelight vigil for the poor, you know, HIV and that died. You know what I mean? And I really think it's just horrific what Manchester Pride are doing. But all this will stay in history. We will understand what we did, you know, later on. And I'd like to condemn Manchester Pride for what they're doing to Alex Bramall as well. I mean, I think it's Bramall, isn't it? Awful. It's a terrible thing to do. I mean, that guy's got every right to be. He's certainly got a right to attend, you know, an HIV vigil for people that died. A lot of us, you know, a lot of gay men, particularly bisexual men, died of HIV, and some lesbians did. I mean, it's got a right to be there, and I find it absolutely disgusting. But I think this is something that we're going to deal with in the future. And I've actually been contacted again by a few people who've said that they've seen that, and they've seen what's happened to the lesbians, and they're now concerned as what I am. So it's really good that this is piquing people as well. But again, if you're lesbian, gay, bisexual out there, please speak out, because the trans lobby are wrecking your rights. They're excluding us from Pride. They're excluding lots of lesbians, gays, and bisexuals are being excluded. Lots of people can't attend the Pride. They just feel that they don't want to go. That might be changing in the future, but we'll see. But I can see that the thing is, this issue is not going to go away, and this issue is getting worse. And this issue is building up, but more and more people are speaking out against it. You know, 4 years ago, we had an handful of people that were on Twitter arguing about it. Now there is thousands of people across the world. But anyway, I'm going to move on to some other news now because we're halfway through. I've put a petition up in the information below. This petition was brought to my attention, and it's asking the UK government to maintain single-sex or private changing facilities in swimming pools. So I'll just read a little bit out of what it is. So it's this is in the context of new policies introduced by swim venues allowing biologically males who identify as women to access female facilities. We believe the government must protect women's access to swimming by ensuring access to single sex or private changing facilities. I really think it should all be single sex, but you know, there's been a few arguments, a few questions, not arguments, but a few questions on that. But that is the way this petition is laid out. So the petition, this particular petition actually has come from the situation of, well, one of the reasons is from the Women's Pond in Hampstead Heath. There was an event there a couple of days ago highlighting the problems of allowing biologically born males who say they are women into women's spaces. It's also because of what's happening in other swimming pools across the UK, but it's actually happening across the Western world now. But it's good that it's happened. It's good this petition has happened. So please, it's in the information. Please sign it. You know, you do need to live in the UK to sign it because it is a Parliament and government petition. But the UK Equality Act legislation should stop this. Could stop this single sex provisions. It could stop this because single sex provisions are protected under law. However, aggressive trans activists are getting their way, causing many problems for some women, religious people like Muslims and Jews, by invading women's spaces. Safe single sex and private facilities, and I'm quoting this from the petition, safe single sex and private facilities are vital to ensure women's safety, privacy and dignity when they're undressing to swim. This can be particularly important for instances because of trauma from sexual assault or for religious reasons. Facilities or services that are labelled female or women only must be single sex, as in the Equality Act 2010 allows for. Women should not unexpectedly encounter a naked male in these spaces or be forced to self-exclude from swimming to avoid this possibility. And that's right. So the petition's in the information below. Please do sign it. Please do share it. The more that sign it, the more people will show, the more it will show to the government that people are, you know, concerned about this, because we need to do something about it. It's quite horrible what's happening to women, really, and you know, I'm appalled that this has happened and this has been taken as far as it has. Incidentally, Sian Berry, I hope I've got the pronunciation right, a Greens London Assembly member since 2006 and Camden councillor since 2004 and candidate for Mayor of London 2008, 2016 and 2021, with she, her in her Twitter profile, had this to say on the Twitter. She said, a transphobic protest group visited the Heath in my ward today. It doesn't deserve my attention or amplification, but I want to record that it was not welcome and doesn't reflect the loving, inclusivity values of the people in Camden at all. Really? And then she put the hashtag as trans rights are human rights. The tweet went on to say in another tweet that we knocked on every door in the run-up to the recent election and spoke with most residents, and I reckon about half a dozen said that they wouldn't vote for me for council as a result of my stance. Many more than that wanted to tell me about how it increased their support. Somehow I don't believe you, Sian Berry, but you know, this is Sian Berry really throwing women under a bus, because it very much does deserve the attention of over half half, well, 50%, over half of the people in your ward, and these are women, you know, and women are starting to wake up to the impacts of trans ideology. Women are starting to, well, women are standing up for their rights. And this is very welcome in your ward, on the Heath, and in London in general. In fact, the world, women standing up for their rights is welcome everywhere. And it's unlikely that the whole of Camden agrees with you, CM Berry. I personally don't believe that only half a dozen people are not going to vote for you in Camden. But please, but don't forget that women's rights are human rights too, CM Berry. And women are organising and coming back for their rights with or without you, CM. I used to live in Camden, on the famous Georgiana Street, until I sued the co-op that managed the house that I resided in and received £5,000 compensation. But we won't go into the grisly details of that case today, but I'm very happy because I got £5,000 compensation from a co-op that, you know, we won't go into it. Okay. So if you think your rights involve invading women's spaces, as in the Hampstead Heath ponds, and you know, ladies' ponds or other women-only spaces, you need to think again, because women are organising, women are getting together, women are getting stronger, women are getting gathered, women are gathering, and women are now fighting back. And I can see that. I can see that on a big scale, and they're fighting back worldwide, and their movement is indeed growing. Yeah, so that's that one. So yeah, the petition is in the information below if anybody wants to sign that petition. But please do share it as well. That's what it's there for, and you know, please do. Okay, so I'm going to move on to mermaids now. The head of policy and research at Mermaids Gender, Kai O'Doherty, is in Geneva at the United Nations, apparently, advocating for transgender rights. I would really like to know what rights trans people don't have in the UK apart from everybody else's. Kai O'Doherty, okay, is there meeting with the United Nations and explaining the, and I quote, wild anti-trans situation we face. Really? The actual submission from Mermaids to United Nations is, as expected, ghastly. I'll read it out. I'll read the basics out of it. It says, we recommend that the UK government introduce legislation within the next parliamentary cycle, okay, to substantially reform the GRA 2004. It goes on to say to remove the requirements for diagnosis, removing the 2-year living as the other sex, but I'm sure that should read gender, and removing the spousal veto option. But even more worryingly, if that's not worrying enough, okay, lower the age limit to 16 and introduce self-ID. Something I would definitely say isn't in the interests of the public, it's not in the interests of women, and it most definitely isn't in the interests of children. The submission also calls to prosecute so-called hate speech against trans people, both in person and on social media. This so-called hate speech submission would probably mean more of an attack on freedom of speech, and likely most be ridiculous, to be quite honest. I think the hate speech would likely mean whatever the trans lobby didn't agree with as well, which again would be very ridiculous. It's like I say, for people out there, if you're watching this clip, please do speak up, because if people don't speak up, things like this crap will be implemented, more children will be negatively impacted, women will lose even more rights than the many they've lost already to the trans lobby, and freedom of speech will become a thing of the past. So speak up for freedom of speech or lose it. Speak up for child safeguarding or children will suffer. Speak up for women's rights or lose them. That's you know, and also speak up for the protection of women's spaces or lose them. I mean, women, you know, are losing a lot of spaces, and it's, you know, we need to speak up. Women particularly need to speak up to get them back. I'm sort of campaigning. I speak up regularly. I'm doing everything I can. It really is simple, though, that if you don't speak up, you don't support the people who are speaking up, you don't complain to the government, we will lose this. But let's not have the trans lobby wreck women's rights, women's spaces, and everything else that they're doing. Whilst we're talking about ghastly mermaids, and I think that's exactly what mermaids are, ghastly, please do support the professional registered charity LGB Alliance and help defend their charity status. Details about the crowdfunder are in the information. Okay, so you can donate, you can share, you know, let's get it shared to as many places as possible, so people are aware about what's going on, so that they might want to donate too. Mermaids are attacking LGB Alliance by taking pointless action to remove LGB Alliance's charity status. They haven't got a cat in hell's chance of winning. It's just the fact that they want to disrupt things. It's unfortunately, this does cost money, and to defend LGB Alliance's charity status, they're having to raise nearly over £250,000. It's all silly. It's all pointless of what mermaids are doing. But again, it will be in our history as what mermaids did, and I reckon that mermaids will be shut down one day. In fact, this might do it actually, because I'm not sure they're allowed to do what they're doing, but they're not going to win. But we did, unfortunately, LGB Alliance need to raise a considerable amount of money in order to protect their status. I have explained what mermaids are like and what they clearly stand for, so please don't let a ghastly organisation like Mermaids strip a great professional charity like LGB Alliance. So please donate if you can. Please share the crowdfunder to raise awareness of what is going on, and so other people can donate and share too. If you don't speak out, if you're looking at this clip and you're thinking about speaking out, please do, because if we don't speak out, okay, if we don't speak out, it will be too late in the future, because ghastly organizations like Mermaids will have had their way, with all these silly gender things that they're trying to implement in the UN. Hopefully the UK government won't take this seriously, but you just never know. You never know what is going to happen. So please do speak out. Bev, who co-founded the professional registered charity LGB Alliance, also co-founded the Gay Liberation Front all those years ago. Many of the LGBT rights people have today is a direct result of Bev's bravery. Please don't treat Bev like this. We owe her so much. Please help her organisation, make a donation, support a professional registered charity LGB Alliance, and share the crowdfunder. Yeah, I mean, it's very sad what mermaids are doing. Well, it's very disgusting what mermaids are doing, but I think that in the future we will look back on this and think how disgusting. LGB Alliance is the only LGBT, lesbian, gay and bisexual charity now in the United Kingdom. Everything else has been hijacked with trans, lot like women's groups, to be quite honest, because a lot of women's groups have been hijacked by the trans movement. It's pretty appalling what's happening, but we really do need to fight back. The trans lobby did all this without us noticing. You know what I mean? They did it all, undercover, if you like. They did it all behind people's backs. Not many people knew what they were doing, and instead of consulting women, instead of consulting the general population, these laws were just thrown in, these rules were just thrown in. And actually a lot of things that the trans lobby are doing are not even within the Equality Act, but they've been implemented. Men that are fully intact, that have never even gone anywhere near any medical, which is what they're supposed to do in order to get a GRC, are accessing women's spaces. They're not allowed to do that, but they're doing it. And you've got the police forces that I've seen regularly on Twitter that are incorrectly stating that gender is a protected characteristic, and actually gender in the context that they're saying isn't. Not in the context of what they've been saying. So if anyone's got any questions or suggestions about this channel, please let me know in the comments. My DMs are open on Twitter and GETTR for any gender critical issues. If you want to expose something in your place of work, school or health authority, please do get in touch. You know, if anyone has any suggestions for topics that you want to talk about on the stream, please do get in touch, and I'll see what I can do. I know there's lots of topics out there. I know there are lots of things that people might want to talk about. You can DM me, or you can put some messages, comments in the under this stream, and we can chat about that. We can talk about that. We can I can do some research and get something put together to bring in. And if there's any backdrops that you like, any sort of scenarios that you've seen that have been on that you quite like, just let me know and we can put these on. Let's all work together, let's all chat, let's all get this channel booming off the ground so that we can get it out there and draw in as many people who don't really know what's going on about the gender ideology and the gender theory that's happening in the world today, and we can really expose and bring them on board, expose what's happening so they can listen to it and bring them on board. That'd be really good. I'm pleased to say that I've received my copy of the Ink Black Heart by the fabulous J.K. Rowling, aka Robert Galbraith. Sorry. Yep, absolutely fantastic. I noticed that somebody had so furious J.K. Rowling has threatened a Twitter user with legal action over fake and defamatory tweet claiming to be written by the Harry Potter author, saying people should live in a closet. I think it's absolutely appalling what these people are doing. Apparently, it's a Florida-based activist that's done this, but I mean, what for? I mean, why are people doing this to J.K. Rowling? Now they're lying. Well, they've lied and smeared all along about J.K. Rowling. And what people don't realize, this has been done on the LGB platform. This has been done on the gay rights platform. So it's time now that people who are still don't know where they are in this gender movement, or if they do know where they are in this gender movement, it's time to actually speak out. It's time to speak out against this nonsense, because J.K. Rowling has got more fans than ever now. More people respect this absolute fantastic woman. So it's time you spoke out as well. Don't let J.K. Rowling go through this. It's really not on. J.K. Rowling's done nothing. She's not transphobic. She is the gem of the United Kingdom, and J.K. Rowling is fantastic, and we all know that, and we all know she hasn't done anything wrong. I'll get some photographs of me and the book, the Ink Black, the Ink Black Art. That's yeah. I'll get some up, and I'll get some up on Instagram and social media, so you can have a look. But go out and buy it. It's got really good ratings. A lot of people like it, say it's a really good book. But pop out there, buy it, and because J.K. Rowling really is taking so much flack, should I say, for supporting women's rights, lesbian, gay and bisexual rights, and child safeguarding. And she's even speaking up for detransitioners who have been harmed at places like the Tavistock Gender Clinic. What's happening to J.K. Rowling is unnecessary, and again, it's a big embarrassment for what's happening on the gay rights platform. I'm not really sure that the trans rights platform are very I'm not really sure what actually doing this to J.K. Rowling is doing for trans rights, to be quite honest, but that's terribly wrong. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the women's sports. I'm pleased to announce Boxing New Zealand are the next sporting body to say no to biologically born males, who identify as females in women's sports. They're saying no. They're going to make an open category. I mean, I'm really surprised that boxing allows to box women in the first place. It's absolutely not right. I mean, anybody with common sense can tell you why that's not right, but anyway, I really good that another sporting body, so Boxing New Zealand, especially in New Zealand as well, who have been very much captured by the gender lobby, so that's really good news that it's even happening in New Zealand, that people are waking up to gender and it's gender ideology and its dangers. Well, this is all I have time for. Please join me next Saturday, 7 p.m. Turf Island time. I will announce the topic of that night nearer the time. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch this stream, whether you're watching it now or whether you watch it later on a different platform. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for all the likes. Thanks for the subscriptions. Thanks for all the views. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. So I'm going to call it a night. So thank you, Amy, and thank you, Amy. You know, you have a good one as well. I'm gonna get something to eat now and get something. I put a bit of honey in my throat so that I can breathe properly, I think. And this COVID, because I have got COVID, and it is I think I've got COVID anyway. The people around me had COVID, so I'm presuming that's what it is. But hopefully on Saturday I should be fully recovered, so that's fine. Thank you for everybody who's been watching. I know I've had a few of people come in and out, and I know there'll be a lot of future people watching. Yeah, please do join me on Saturday, and yeah, that's great. So thank you a lot. Bye. Yep. Okay, bye.